Welcome back to 3D Printing 101. Gone through the basics, showed you how to choose what printer to get. Now we're going to talk about filament. First of all, in order to pick the right filament, you need to see what your printer requires. Some printers are going to need 1.75 millimeter filament, and some are going to need 2.85 millimeter filament. The most common kind is 1.75 millimeters. If you see somewhere that says 3 millimeters, that's just referring to 2.85 millimeters. Just doing a quick Google search will let you know for sure what your printer needs. With that out of the way, let's look at the different materials available for us to use. PLA. PLA, or polylactic acid, is actually made up of biomass like beets and cornstarch. Hold on a sec, don't eat it, and you can't just throw it in the mud and expect it to disintegrate. But it is compostable commercially. So when you see spoons or forks or sometimes even cups that say PLA or environmentally friendly on it, that's what that means. But honestly, most of those just end up in the garbage anyway. But PLA, in my opinion, is the best material for anyone to start with. Even once you get more advanced, it's the best one to stick with for three main reasons. Number one is it's the easiest to use. Every printer on the market is designed to work with PLA. So when you get your 3D printer, you don't have to wonder if this is going to work, which is not true for some other filaments. It's easy to get PLA working quickly. The other thing is it's the cheapest. You can get a roll of filament for down to $14 or $15 for this roll of filament. This whole one was, I think, about $14. If you get them in bulk, they're even cheaper. But I'll tell you exactly where you can get your filament from later in the video to make sure you're getting the best kind. Third main reason is that it doesn't produce harmful fumes. So you can put this in your garage, you can put this somewhere in your house. You don't need to worry about, am I going to die? That is not true for some other materials. PLA is not, by any means, any stretch of the imagination, the strongest material. Not yet. It's not the most heat resistant. There have been stories about, PLA parts melting and disfiguring beyond repair just because they were sitting in someone's hot car. It's in a summer day. The other problem with PLA is it can get brittle over time. That happens with all filament, but if you leave your PLA out, it's going to absorb a bunch of moisture, and then it's just going to break. It's going to snap, and you're not going to be able to print with it. There are ways around this. This is a vacuum sealable bag. So you put your filament in here. A lot of filaments even come with things like that, and then you can just attach a vacuum to it, suck the air out, and it'll keep it nice and basically just preserve it for longer. It doesn't maintain it forever necessarily, but it does keep it longer. You can also get airtight bins, and they sell basically the silica gel packets that you find like when you buy something. A lot of times it'll come with like one of the little gel packets that says "Do not eat." It's basically those, but in the form of beads. So you put the beads inside the container, leave your filament in there, and then once the beads absorb, they just keep absorbing the moisture, keeping it away from your filament. But once they absorb too much moisture, they change color, and then you can just heat them up, and they reset, and you can use them again. So that is something to look into if you're interested, especially if you live in a humid area. There are ways to make PLA stronger. For example, you can heat it up to really high temperatures, and it'll basically fuse the layers together. This is a little bit more advanced, but know that it is possible. If you want stronger parts, you're probably going to want to use a different kind of filament. And one of those filaments is ABS. ABS is still one of the most popular filaments that people use to print with. But that popularity is rapidly decreasing because PLA and PETG, which we'll talk about in a minute, are getting better, and better every year. Scientists are working to make those strong because I think that they realize that ABS is not a sustainable option. You know how strong ABS is. If you've ever stepped on a Lego or thrown it at a wall or shoved it up your nose, all Lego bricks are made of ABS. ABS has some good things. Like we talked about, it's super strong. It's also more temperature resistant. With that, though, that also means you have to raise it to a higher temperature to get it to print. Some downsides, and serious downsides, It produces fumes that not only do they irritate your nose, your throat, and your respiratory system, but they might also have cancer-causing agents in them. So I hate cancer. It sucks. So maybe stay away from ABS. There are ways around this, like installing a ventilation system we talked about earlier, but that's just going to add to your cost. So if you're trying to keep costs low and keep things simple, don't use ABS. It is also not nearly as beginner friendly as PLA. It's just notoriously tricky to work with. There are some cool things you can do with ABS, like acetone smoothing and some weird little science things. But all in all, I don't think that anyone should solely use ABS. There are some applications where it is helpful for sure, but just go with PLA for now. All right, number 3 is PETG. PETG is awesome. Let me tell you why. We talked about how great PLA is, and we talked about some of the good things that ABS can do. Take the best things from PLA, how easy it is to use, not giving you cancer, and ABS, the strength and temperature resistance, put them together. It's like the peanut butter of filament. It's just that good. The only thing you're going to have to watch out for, though, is you do need to heat up your printer a little bit more in order to print PETG, just because of that extra temperature resistance. It just prints at a higher temperature. But that means that you need to have an all-metal hot end. If you don't have an all-metal hot end, or you don't even know what that means, that's okay. You don't have to worry about it right now. Again, if you are curious, you can just look it up, type in your printer name, and type metal hot end ? And it should come up. If your printer does not have one, you can just order it online, get it delivered, and install it. Now that we've covered the 3 main filaments, there are some other filaments that you might want to know about. They aren't really going to be relevant to you right now because they're not beginner friendly, and they aren't important for starting out. But I'll give you a sneak peek just so you know what to look forward to. Flexible filaments. TPU is probably the most popular flexible filament in the world right now. It's almost silicone-like, so stretchy and squishy that it will literally destroy printers. It's notoriously horrible to print with, but people are making alternatives, and they've been working on them even in recent years. FPLA, or flexible PLA, prints a lot like regular PLA, but it's squishy. It's not quite as like rubbery and silicone as TPU is, but it is a great first step in getting there, and it works well for most of the things you need it for. To make stronger parts, scientists have also made composite materials. So they've taken things like carbon fiber and worked them into PLA. These are hard to print, and they do corrode nozzles pretty easily. So maybe don't start with those, but it is cool to know and something you might want to try later on. There are color changing filaments, there are glow in the dark filaments, but in my opinion, the coolest one that I've come across is metal infused filament. You print it out, and you can turn that into an electrical component. Later on in the course, we're going to talk about multi-material printing and multi-color printing. So if you take these two things and put them together, you can have a plastic part that also has circuitry and stuff inside of it. So I'm super excited. I'm definitely going to try that out at some point. So what do you need to know? To summarize, PLA is the best material to start with. Once you've mastered PLA, if you have some projects that need to be stronger or more temperature resistant, say something it's a practical print or something you're going to use outside, you might want to go to PETG. I've tried dozens of different filaments, and so to start out, here are the ones that I recommend. Elegoo PLA. This filament is pretty high quality while still being a low price. Being honest, it's comparable with the more expensive ones that I've tried. Depending on the color and where you're getting it from, you can usually pick up a roll between $14 and $15. This is one of the 1 kilogram rolls, and it's going to last you quite a while. Next, we have Polymaker Polyterra PLA. This one is a little bit more eco-friendly than the other one. I think they even plant a tree for every roll that they sell. Pretty cool. This one is also a great quality and a great price. You can get it for about $20. All right, that is it. If you're interested in more expensive or higher quality filaments, then you can check out matterhackers.com. They're very well known, very good company, and they've got a huge range of options for filament. I've got links to a guide I made down below and also all of the products I talk about. Okay, everybody, I hope that you had as much fun as I did. If you're ready for more, your brain muscles are working, click the button. I'll see you in the next lesson.